And welcome to the program. Joining me now, Jim Hudson. He is the Secretary of the Department of Finance and Administration. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Roby. Thank you
for
having me.
We go back to Hendrix College days.
Let's not count the years.
A few decades ago.
A little while ago, right?
At least 10 years ago, maybe a little longer.
More.
So thanks for being here.
Yes,
all right, let's talk first about this budget surplus that is, I think at some point in time, we will have a special session here in the next 2 weeks, perhaps. I won't ask you for a date on that, but that's what's floating around. Why do you think the Arkansas economy has been so resilient?
Well, I do think part of the story are the tax cuts that we've had here the past several years. I think it clearly is stimulating the economy to a large extent. I think Arkansas is one of those states that doesn't run too hot and it doesn't run too cold. I think we make responsible decisions both in government and in business, and I think that lets the flywheel keep turning. So I think the economy in Arkansas is still very strong here.
When you see just those tax cuts and how they turn back over into the economy, do you see that strength in income tax collections, sales tax collections? I mean, it has been a pretty broad-based, strong revenue reports.
It has. So I think you see it first, really in the income tax area, both in corporate and individual income. So people take that money, they get back, and then they're able to reinvest it in the economy, both from a corporate perspective, but from an individual perspective. So you think about for somebody who's making $50,000 a year, a couple $50,000 income, they're getting back about $460 a year from the tax cuts we've passed. That's a car payment right there.
Yeah.
So they can take that money and they can go buy things with it and make their lifestyle a little bit better.
Yeah, and when they're making millions like you, it's even bigger and better, isn't it? I'm just kidding.
You should really go back and work on your math.
You're right. Hopefully you can speak to this. I have heard from Speaker Shepherd, Senate President Hester, that they are looking at anywhere between a 0.2% and 0.5% income tax cut on the personal income tax side. Has anything been decided on that? What do you feel is the sweet spot on that?
Well, nothing's been decided, in terms of future revenue, tax cuts. I think the governor's committed. She's made that very clear all along that she wants to drive to a zero, income tax rate, and we need to continue to make progress on that in a responsible fashion. I know that she's had good, constructive dialogue with leadership about what next steps could look like. I would just say stay tuned.
Well, we'll stay tuned. I'm sure it'll get thrown out there. Somebody's going to talk about it before it gets on the call for the special session, I predict. So I was just giving you a chance to be that guy. So.
I let the governor make news. I don't make news.
All right. Well, let's talk about the fact some people will say that these tax cuts, while they are potentially spawning this economic activity, we could also be investing that money in infrastructure. We could be investing in it in stronger pre-K programs, prisons. There are a lot of places where the services that the state provides. I don't know if you get into the philosophy of that, but I mean, are those arguments, do you think they have merit?
No, those are arguments, but I don't think they have merit. If you look at it from a prison perspective, we've already set aside a significant amount of money for the construction of a new prison. If more is ever needed, we'll be able, I think, to take care of that. We're already making significant investments in education. You think about pre-K, I hear that, national rankings would say that Arkansas is in the top 10 in terms of the number of 3-year-olds who are in pre-K and the amount of government spending for that age group. So I don't think we're not taking care of that part of the population. I think at the end of the day, we have a budget, and the budget establishes the priorities for the state of Arkansas. Once we've fully funded our priorities, I think the first claim of any money that's left over is to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
It's their money, we need to give it back to them.
Well, an area that did not get more money in this last budget process was higher education. I think there's actually a cut in higher education there. I mean, should we not have been investing more in higher education? Well,
higher education, we just applied the formula funding to that higher education institutions had agreed to themselves. And so for those institutions that the productivity formula didn't warrant additional funding, but maybe reduced funding, we just applied that formula as is. Higher education is incredibly expensive. I think, there's ongoing national conversations about that. To the extent there's any changes to the higher education formula, that'll be coming probably at a later date.
Yeah. We got about a minute and a half left. Yep. I want to talk to you about, there is a public hearing on Friday that is discussing this issue of gender recognition on driver's licenses. You're following state law. You are establishing a rule that is going to put the state law into the proper promulgated area that it needs to be. But there is a public hearing on this. Everybody's going to get a chance to vent and say what they want to say. Is it going to change anything, I think is my question. What's the point of having the public hearing if it's pretty clear you have to do this to follow state law?
Yeah.
What are you going to get out of that public
Well,
commentary?
the public input is the main product of that. So when we go back to the General Assembly with our permanent rule, we will present to the General Assembly, here's all the public comment that we received. And the General Assembly gets to take that into account as it considers whether or not it will pass our rule. We do think the rule that we're promulgating is consistent with state law and really just reestablishes what was state law before the Department of Finance Administration changed it without going through the rulemaking process several years ago.
Right. You think it'll be influential in terms of what you receive in public comment, that it will change a lawmaker's opinion about something, or just reinforce their position of what they've already done?
Yeah, can't say that. I think anytime a citizen has an opportunity to speak up about where policy is changing, that's important, and we'll listen to it.
All right. He's Jim Hudson. He is the Secretary of the Department of Finance and Administration. You're going to see a lot more of him whenever this special session starts cranking up. Good to see you, Jim.
Thank you, Roby.
Thank you for being here. All right. We'll be back with more right after this.